Greetings, 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 brothers and sisters, greetings. First and foremost, as we get into tonight's word, we must acknowledge our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through His only begotten Son, Yahushai, for allowing this word to come out. And I hope you sincere brothers and sisters are truly, truly edified by tonight's word. And we're going to name this word, the time of pleasure and happiness, resembling the time of suffering. Let me say it again. The name of tonight's word is called the time of pleasure and happiness, resembling the time of suffering. Okay. In tonight's word, man, I want us to really think about the time that we are in. For some of us, time is going by very fast, and for some of us, times are going very slow. But either way, you whatever side of the fence that you on, just understand that life right now is not peaches and cream, is not barbecue and ball games, is not this happy-go-lucky, go out and just have a great time, enjoy life, live your life to the full. All of that sounds nice and dandy, but the reality of it is we are in the time of suffering. Okay? When you look at our babies being born dead, it's babies that are being born dead every day. Okay? People that have children are losing their children by way of the gun and by way of high-speed vehicles. Okay? You have homeless people out here in the cold, especially in the Midwest. Okay? Look at the job market right now. Look at it in corporate America. Unemployment is at an all-time high. You got people flat broke on their ass, man. You got, people that smoked out on drugs, dealing with alcohol abuse and addiction, drug addiction. Okay? Times are really dangerous right now. Even marriages are being under attack right now. Okay? What you see on the screen is exactly the result of what suffering looks like. Okay, when someone lose their born dead baby, when someone lose their child by way of gun and high-speed vehicles, when you see people homeless out in the cold, when you see people dealing with unemployment, when you see people smoked out on drugs, okay, suffering from alcohol addiction, when you see these marriages is crumbling, what you see on the screen is exactly what it looks like. But meanwhile, people out here in a celebratory spirit, happy and entertaining all types of pleasures, all type of desires, like life is sweet. And in reality, we are in the time of suffering, brothers and sisters. We're going to come to you in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8 and 9. And we're going to close this thing out, man. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8, and it reads, "We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair." So let's analyze 2 Corinthians 4, verse 8. The first thing it tells you is what? We are troubled. In other words, we are being mentally challenged today. That's a great example of the trouble that we are dealing with. It says we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. So even though we might be mentally challenged in this time, we are not subject to pain and anguish of the mind and body. Okay? So when it says we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed, that's what that's talking about. We are being mentally challenged, but we are not subject to the pain and anguish of the mind and body. It says in 2 Corinthians 4 and 8, we are perplexed, but not in despair. In other words, okay, we are not able to know how to decide and make decisions That's the state that we are in right now. We are not able to know how to decide and make decisions. So think about that, man. When you're in a state where you're not able to know how to decide and make decisions, that's a time of suffering, mental, psychological suffering. But it says, again, we are perplexed, but not in despair. Okay. In other words, we are not utterly at a loss. Okay. We still have a chance to overcome the suffering. But meanwhile, people are in a state of happiness, in a state of pleasure, man. Unreal. And in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 9, it reads, persecuted, but not forsaken, cast down, but not destroyed. So let's look at that, brothers and sisters. Let's analyze that, okay? First and foremost, what's the name of the lesson again? The time of pleasure and happiness resembling the time of suffering, man. And when we look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 9, the first thing it says is what? We are persecuted. In other words, we are subject to being harassed with unjust punishment. But even though we are subject to being harassed with unjust punishment, what do it say? Persecuted, but not forsaken. In other words, we're not abandoned. We're not being we're not being left helpless. You see? It says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 9, cast down. In other words, we may be thrown to the ground, but it says, but not destroyed. But we're not ruined. We haven't perished. Okay? We haven't perished. So that means we still have a chance, man, to overcome the suffering that's been bestowed upon us. In this life that we live, man, you're going to have your highs, your lows, your in-betweens. You're going to have your good times, your bad times, your in-between times. That's just life. But please know, there is a time when, matter of fact, let me grab that in Ecclesiastes. I think it's chapter 3, man. I get it. People, want to be in a celebratory spirit. I get it. But there's a time and there's a season for everything. And right now, we are in a time of suffering, man. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, it says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the sun. Verse 2 in Ecclesiastes 3, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. Verse 3, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. Verse 4, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. You see? Verse 5, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. See that? Verse 6, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away. Verse 7, a time to rend or tear apart and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And verse 8, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. You see that? So there's a time where you in a season for a lot of things that comes on in this vain life of ours. But at the same time, understand, right now as we speak, we in a time of suffering. You might not feel like you suffering personally, but trust me, you are in a state of suffering. I'm telling you, man. Everybody right now in this world, no matter how much they might laugh, shuck and jive, and do all these nice things, it's a facade. Why? Because we are in the time of suffering, man. And people are misinformed They are misinformed our time of suffering for a time of pleasure and happiness. We in dangerous times, man. I'm telling you. I hope you, sincere brothers and sisters, please stay spiritually conscious and awoke as we deal with the time of suffering we are in. And when you keep the mind state of being in a time of suffering, it should keep you humble. It should keep you very, very, very sober minded, man, and down to earth, if that's a better way to peep it, the better way to say it. Be circumspect, watch people, be on alert, man, because everybody that say your friend, you're going to find out if they really your friend. Everybody that say they love you, you're going to find out if they really love you. I'm telling you. That's all I got for you, man. I hope you sincere brothers and sisters were truly edified by this word, and we give all praises, glory, and honor to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through his only begotten Son, Yahushai, for allowing this word to come out, man. Shalom.